we will just begin our presentation on applying to the Jung Center Art Open Call. And this definitely is quite helpful for any open calls pertaining to when committees are selecting these open calls. As you might know, potentially, there are different types of open calls, some that are organized by committees and that select work via committee, and others which are curatorial. So there's a curator who has something in mind and they're selecting work. And then there's also another type of open call where it's jured. And so the juror will pick the open call, the people who would be to show, and also award prizes. And so, so for the Jung Center, this is has been our tradition to have, anywhere from, I believe, 7 to 10 people on the committee that meet every year. So I'm going to start showing my screen, and I'm also going to be looking at all the questions that have been raised pertaining to the open call in general that we have. And feel free to put anything in the chat, but we will definitely hold all your questions till the end because most likely I will answer them all. And we will have a few members of the committee. Hello, guys. I see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. And they will chime in on some of their perspectives, as well as we'll get to a few handful of questions that maybe we didn't touch on. So without further ado, I will begin presenting the basics. Okay, so first of all, you want to go to the website, right? And our first step here at the Jung Center, we go to the gallery page here. And one of the things I like to do when applying, or things that we suggest, is look at the gallery website page for that particular organization. Look at our page, read it, see what the gallery is about, right? Look here at our current exhibitions, past as future exhibitions, which is all right here, permanent exhibition, and you can also look at the past ones. And, just kind of take a survey and then kind of let that percolate a little bit in when you're thinking about your work, right? So we won't go into every artist here on display. That's something you should do. But we're going to click on here, submission guidelines. When you do that, you get this PDF. And so we're just going to read this together. Now, here is a very helpful tip for anyone applying to any kind of open call or trying to work with a gallery. And we are a nonprofit art space. Sometimes we say gallery, but what I mean is nonprofit art space. Okay, so it's a huge difference, right? How we handle the artists, how we represent them, and how money is handled in terms of commission and that sort of thing. So the two different animals. But just to clarify, just in case I say gallery, I'm talking about nonprofit artist space. Okay, so anytime we're applying, we want to read everything and do everything that it specifies according to the way it is specified. People, let me tell you something. Shout out to Alyssa Davis. People spend a lot of time crafting these things over years and years to make sure the language is perfect and clear so that there's no confusion. One thing I like to do, and I recommend to people who have, neurodivergent issues or, differently minded, specially minded, is, print this out and actually get a friend or, an art buddy or someone who is in the art industry that you can trust and say, hey, let's read this together. And also I want you to review my application and let me know if I missed anything. This is very helpful. So let's go through this. All right. The Jung Center's building was originally designed as a gallery. It mounts approximately 8 exhibitions open to the general public each year. Eligibility, right? Very important. We got to check this first because maybe we don't qualify. But in general, for us, we are very open to many artists and many different works of art. So it says here, artists are chosen by the Art and Exhibition Committee in the summer of each year. Entries should be submitted between January 1st and April 30th of each year for inclusion in the next calendar year. Okay? This is one practice I love to do. When I have an open call that interests me and a space that interests me, I put this on my calendar and I put a reminder for every year. And I put it on repeat. So if maybe one year I can't apply, or if I was rejected, I can apply again. Okay. And I highly encourage you, don't be discouraged. Okay, guys, just keep trying and also keep seeking feedback, right? Okay. Artists must have a body of recent work large enough to fill the gallery. See the gallery diagram attached, which we will look at. Retrospectives are permissible at the discretion of the Art and Exhibition Committee. With the exception of participation in group shows, artists are limited to one exhibition every 5 years. Now you say group shows. What is that about? We'll get to that in a bit. Okay, specifications. There is no specific size or height limitation for sculptures and paintings, right? It's just got to fit in the door, okay? And if you have very big work, I would highly recommend, going to the space and measuring the biggest door they have. But you know what? Ours are pretty standard. So, so long as it fits through the size of two standard doors, because then we can open the door that wide, right? And I've seen some people move in art at a diagonal, right? To get that extra inch. So that's possible. See the following page for details and dimensions of the gallery page. Okay, see, you hear that again. That's very important. You got to check that out, print it out, put it in your art space. Other specifications, look, it doesn't say anything about, oh, it has to be this subject matter. It has to be about psychology. It has to be about Jung. No, it does not say anything about that, which is great because other open calls might say something about what kind of theme. Like if it's a curatorial open call, they're probably going to say what kind of type of art they're looking for, or what theme, or something along those lines. So this is very good. This is very important. Entries. Your application should include, right? Should a maximum of 10 images representative of the proposal, at least 72 DPI JPEG files, 300 DPI preferred, and will be requested if your submission is accepted. So what that means is you want to start off on all your submissions. It doesn't matter where you're submitting. Start off with the low resolution, 72 DPI JPEG. Okay, you can also do PNG, but we're asking for JPEG, so we're going to stick with what we're asking for. So, but once you are submitted, and once maybe you have been selected, right? Then the space will ask for the high resolution, right? And this is for press. This is for any printed materials. So that is important. So when you're preparing your proposal, a really good standard business practice is to prepare the low res, prepare the high res, then shrink it down to low res, right? You always want to go from large to small. It's harder to get a good quality image if you're going small to large. You can do it, but it can be a little tricky. It could backfire. Now we say maximum 10 images. So, what you want to do is you want to pick the best, right? And if you feel like maybe you're struggling with 10, it's better to edit down, because we do have 2 different spaces, and sometimes we have put in 3 artists in the space, and often we have done 2 artists in the space. So they could look at your work and say, you know what, this would be a good thing for the side gallery, right? So, keep that in mind. Always just try to do just the very best. And it says here, please include title, size, medium, and price. You can very well be disqualified if you do not list these things. Now, price, not necessarily disqualified, but if there's no title, no size, no medium, they're just going to skip right over that, because they want to visualize, how does your work relate to the architectural space? What is the scale? How are you filling up the space, right? Next, complete contact information. You'll be disqualified if you don't have your name, address, phone number, and email. It's just one of those things, we gotta contact you, right? An artist statement of no more than 30 words and a bio. A list of shows, awards, and collections may be included. So this is great. 300 words and a bio. I would even do something like where the bio is almost like 300 words. Some people, they just want to do a whole epic novel about who they are. But honestly, you have to remember these these committee members are pressed for time. They're looking at maybe 30 plus submissions, depending on the situation. Could be much, much larger. I think now we're going to be pushing at, over 100 that will be submitted. But they don't have time for that. Okay, now you are special, right? You've got a great bio, you got a great story, but shrink it down. Okay, less is more, right?
Rosalinda, if I can jump in, on the contact information, we've had a number of artists that have an artist's name that they use that is different from their legal name. And so don't hesitate to give us a heads up if that's the case. We do offer a stipend to artists that are chosen to have a show here. And so for payment for that stipend, I will need your legal name. And so that's why we ask for all that contact info as well.
Excellent. That's such a great point. Yes. And that would be the same for any kind of artist collective or a group show. You want to have all the artist names there and be very specific about, what's their, pseudonym, their art name versus their legal name, right? And then okay, a list of shows, awards, collections may also be included, right? So good to like keep up with your CV if you have that. Now it says email entries to Art and Exhibition Committee, care of Alyssa Davis. And so here's the email address, right? Now, this is something also to make note of is that in general, when you submit your work to be a part of a show, you should get a confirmation email. And you definitely will get one with Alyssa. She's very key on detail and making sure that the process goes smooth for everybody. So if you don't receive an email from her saying thank you for your submission, that means maybe you spelled her name wrong. Maybe you did a copy and paste error, but you try again. Okay, so and give her like a day or two to respond to you. But
Thank you. Sometimes it does take me up to 48 hours to make sure I have everything I need and respond accordingly. But when I do
right.
respond, I will say your submission is received incomplete. And that lets you know we got everything we asked for.
Right, right. And eventually we will update this because we will be doing a different platform for submission. But right now this is how it goes. And in general, you shall receive, confirmation that your submission has been received, right? All right, next. Artwork presented for display must be substantially similar in content or subject matter to the work previously provided to the art committee and exhibition committee for evaluation. So, for example, a group show or a collective, you want to put in the work that, you're proposing. But, if members come in with, additional works, maybe from the same body of work or something similar, they're painters and they're just doing the next step of that painting idea or something like that, then that's what we mean, right? We don't mean like, you submitted a whole proposal of photography of flowers and then you come in with origami, right? Like that would not make sense. Okay, so it has to be similar.
Yeah, and it's not unusual for an artist to once they've been accepted to be inspired to create a new body of work, right? And so I'm always open to questions if you're concerned about the material that's being proposed. 9 times out of 10, it is not a problem.
All right. So, and this next point here for insurance here, it says Jung Center or its insurance carrier assume no liability to the artist, third party for any harm, destruction, theft, mutilation of the artwork. Your artwork is exhibited at the Jung Center at your own risk. So, you're also welcome to take out, insurance on your art. Speak to your insurance carrier because there are specific guidelines for that. It's very easy. It's not that expensive. You just gotta do a little, you know, homework concerning that. Okay, accepted entries. Accepted work will be scheduled for exhibition by the Art and Exhibition Committee, and the artist will be notified of acceptance and the proposed month of the exhibition. Artists' contracts will be emailed and should be signed and returned promptly to guarantee favorable exhibition, installation, reception, dates, and times. So one suggestion I make is that you save Alyssa's email address, right? So it goes immediately to your inbox and that you're notified of when she is proposing that you show or, all the details concerning your acceptance, right? And to do it quickly, right? Book the timing quickly so that you get the best possible outcome, right? And then also you make it easier and have a better relationship with the organization that you're working with, right? A little insider tip.
Also, also just quickly, I inform everyone that applied. So I don't just inform folks that are accepted. I send out letters to everyone. If you weren't accepted, you will also hear from me. So again, if you're curious or wondering, feel free to fire me an email.
That is so great, and that is so generous because some places do not do that. So it just speaks to how much the Jung Center is committed to, working with artists and really doing the best we can with our art space. So thank you, Alyssa, for that. That's just great. Okay, let's see. Okay. Yeah, of course, the Art and Exhibition Committee and the Jung Center administration reserve the right to reject any work misrepresented or unsuitably presented. What this means is, in general, and Alyssa can chime in more here, it means that, maybe the way you have framed your work is not looking good. For example, it doesn't fit, or maybe yeah, maybe you're presenting photography and it's just crumply or something, and that's not the concept behind the work. Something that makes the Jung Center look unprofessional. This is kind of what it's alluding to, but it's an overarching idea that, encouraging artists to be professional in how they present the work. Installation, the artists are fully responsible for transporting artwork to and from the center. We have very hard deadlines as to when you install and when you remove the artwork because we have a schedule, right? So you've got to organize yourself with your friends, your family, your resources to do that in the
And
appropriate.
I do keep a tight install and deinstall schedule. And the reason for that is our center is open to the public. And so I try to keep empty gallery walls to a minimum. So it is not unusual to have a deinstallation on a Tuesday and an installation starting the very next day on Wednesday.
Yes, thank you. That is absolutely so important. So this is something you would put on your calendar when you're accepted, right? And to give yourself notification and to organize yourself concerning that. Artists are responsible for the installation of their shows, okay? Alyssa is around, if you wanted to pick her brain about something, that's something we could do. But in terms of all the heavy lifting, all the putting things on the wall, that is for the artist to work on. And this is an exceptional opportunity to get really hands-on experience in installation and organizing your show.
It's also not unusual. We do occasionally have artists that bring installers. If that's the way they are accustomed to doing things, trust me, I'm never going to have a problem with people inviting professional installers to come into the space. But that's certainly not a requirement. Lots of people do it themselves.
Right, right. And then if you would like a recommendation on professional installers, we do have that. So that is another option. So you have a few options there. So that's great. All right. The center will provide hooks for hanging all art pieces. So that means your work needs to be ready to hang. On a either with D rings or with a wire. No art installed with nails, screws, or hooks may be used for the art installation. We have a hanging system where it's basically a wire that comes down from a rail and then a little zip hardware that with a hook, and so you just hook your art on that. The artist must
God love
provide. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, God love our beautiful building and space. But we have honest to God plaster walls. And they're covered in a grass cloth. And so it's about protecting the integrity of the walls themselves, which is why we use our hanging system. But it's a system that works. But yeah, it does require, D-rings or wires or something along those lines. If it's 2D work, of course.
Right, right. Yes. So yeah, that's just such a great thing to understand. And this is the case often with older buildings, historical art spaces. They will have this similar construction, whereas like, newer spaces will have, you know, um, plywood behind the sheetrock, and then you can just put in a screw or a nail very easily. Um, Artists must provide information about the work, title, piece, medium, size. And this is important when you have your submission, either as a printed list or as title cards placed on the wall next to the work. So, you are responsible for having all that information in advance. Do not show up the day of the opening with this information. I've seen it many times. It's very unprofessional, and it puts a lot of tension and stress on the artist to get it done, as well as myself or other people who are working the opening. All works must be packed up in the agreed upon time. The center is unable to store any artwork, so the work must not be on premises more than one day before or one day after your designated exhibition dates. Opening reception. Opening reception are most often held on Saturday following installation from 5 to 7. The artist is financially and logistically responsible for providing all refreshments, serving staff, decorations, any other accoutrements. The center will provide tables appropriate for the use in serving the refreshments planned. So let us know how many tables you need. Final plans for the reception must be made by the artist with the Jung Center gallery manager no later than 10 days prior to the scheduled reception date. Donation. While the Jung Center provides free space to support the arts, we are a nonprofit educational institution and are grateful for donations from the public. Traditionally, artists donate 20% of their sales to the center.
To be clear, that is our commission for the gallery. 20% of sales that are generated by the show. And for most galleries, it's a 50% commission. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we do what we do while being able to provide as much for the artist as possible.
Yes, yes, that is so good. And, some artists are very generous. They will donate a work of art. They will donate, maybe more than 20% because it's going to go back into the gallery, into supporting the programming, educational events, maybe writers or any other things that, our space might need in the future. So we really appreciate the generosity of the artists who, understand this. So, okay, here is the floor plan, right? And anything you want to talk about, Alyssa, concerning the floor plan here?
No, again, I did park in the chat that I always encourage folks to come to the center And our gallery is always free. And so there's, a diagram will never be as great as seeing the space itself. But the diagram is very helpful for planning. And also we are working on an updated version of the diagram. Not that the dimensions have changed, just that this one is kind of old and pixelated, and we're working on a refresh.
Right, right.
Also of note, Rosalinda, if you'll scroll down a bit so we can see the front part of the gallery. So this part here that says reception, that area is generally off limits for exhibition, because that's where we put our info and our sort of materials for the Jung Center. But of course, if you come see the current show, there are two beautiful fiber panels hanging in our front windows. And then in the center part of the main gallery, we have a fountain with plants, and people have done really interesting things. It's an interesting, weird space, and we encourage people to think creatively.
Right, right. Yeah, and yeah, definitely, as you can see here, there's some space to have art. This area right here and right here is where we put maybe wall text. Sometimes people put sculpture here, but like Alyssa said, it's good to look at it, to imagine and to kind of plan. So this is the side gallery I mentioned earlier, a smaller space, more intimate, and then the larger main space here. And there's a wall here, a major wall here, to put art. Sometimes people put art here on the side. It just really depends. But yeah, the focus should be on these walls here, in between this
And
area.
also, if we do make an offer to have two artists in the space at one time, so we'll designate one artist for the main gallery. We'll designate another artist for the side gallery. What we have discovered is if you use that sort of front portion of the gallery to have work from both artists. And so it's lovely to have sort of an introduction to both artists in that first portion of the main gallery. Because we like to give people as many opportunities as possible. So I know our committee historically looks at these submissions with an eye of who could we pair up, who could we put together that would be cohesive together, and we're very thoughtful about that. But again, I just really encourage if there's an opportunity for collaboration. Grab that opportunity, get to know the other artists that you'll be displaying with. And because it's always wonderful if there can be a little bit of union, right? At the entry to the show, before sending folks off to look at your work, right?
Right, right. Yes. Be open to collaboration. And the other thing about looking at the space and really focusing on this diagram is, a lot of the feedback I've heard from the committee is that, you need to tell a cohesive story that can work in the space, right? So that those two things can help as well as, editing down images that you're going to show to the committee. Okay, so I think the last couple things to just touch on is, there's a lot of questions surrounding, low res images, high res images, that sort of thing. So I will just just give you a quick little example here. So this is a Canva, and you can get a free account for just doing this. Oops, sorry. And basically what you want to do is you want to set up a new file, right? You can go here and create a new design or upload. Actually, what you want to do is probably upload a file, or you can create a new design, doesn't matter. But we'll just say we did that, right? And then you go here to uploads and you just upload an image. Click here, and then that image will populate and you can just drag and drop it. And then when you get here, you can just click on text, and here where you can add to the side, you know, your your title, right? I'm not gonna do a full tutorial, but you know, you could do something like that, right? You put your title, your medium, your size, the price, that sort of thing here on the side or on the bottom, up to you how you want to do that. And then
And
easily,
let me reiterate how important those details are. I can't tell you how many times we are looking at images in the committee meeting, and someone will say, "How big is this? What dimensions? What's the medium?" And so that information legitimately comes up in the process.
right, and there's no mystery. It just go back to the guidelines, right? And then so easily here in Canva, you just click download. And well, this was a video, but so I just want to do JPEG, and then I specify which image I want to download. I think it was number 3, but yeah, and click this one, and I just click number 2 or number 3, and done. And then it's gonna crunch for you the quality that you're looking for. So yeah, you could do, it'll tell you, you know, how small. I would do like something like this, like a medium, you know,
For the
something like,
submission, a medium is fine. Again, when folks are accepted, I follow up by asking for high-res images at that.
right, right,
I just know people sometimes struggle to figure out how to email us 10 images if they're these big giant files.
right.
And so for the submission, we don't necessarily need the big giant files.
Yeah. So you can easily adjust the quality, large, small, and then download. And then you've prepared your submission with those steps. So I think that is almost the end of my list, except for the fact that we just wanted to touch on a couple of special considerations for collectives, group shows. One, make sure there's one point person clearly listed, right? Their contact that we have asked for, the names of the artists, and of course, as we mentioned, art that is representative of what will be shown. The other tip that Alyssa and I had mentioned earlier in discussing and preparing for this was that, you know, we also invite you to submit to the Visions show, which is every year. It's a group show of our community. And, you know, the committee meets at around this time. So you get a chance to have them look at your work, to be in the space. You can, you know, visualize that. And
Yeah, so every summer we have a group show of members of our community. So it's open to anyone that has taken a class at the Jung Center over the last year, or is a current member of the Jung Center, or volunteer or staff member, of course. It's a very minimal entry fee. I think it's $30 for the first piece. And $20 for the subsequent pieces. We accept up to 3 pieces. And that visions show that we do every summer is not juried. And so you are guaranteed to have at least one of your artworks hung in that show. And again, that show is usually what is up on the walls when our committee gathers to meet. And so it's frequently been a very easy way to say, all right, guys, now that we've looked at the submission, we can actually go out into the gallery and look at the work. And it's always a really fantastic, robust show. So I always want to make sure people know that that's another option out there.
okay. Do any of the committee members want to chime in about any of their suggestions?
What did we miss, y'all?
Hello, Jonathan Jackson. I'm on the advisory board committee. If you haven't already, I highly suggest you go to the Young Center, look at the space, take photos of the space, because I think if you do that, you'll get a better feel of what you want to show. And then you get to meet the staff. They're very awesome. Alyssa and the crew over there is just like really great. So I highly suggest you go and visit the Young Center, take photos, get a feel for the space. Because I'm also an artist, so as an artist, like I like to go to the gallery, like even like lay on the ground and just get a feel for the space in general. Because that also helps me like decide what work I want to put in the show itself. And then you can also take photos of the space itself and then um, make renders of your work, which also helps the advisory board committee see what your work will actually look like in the space itself. But that's it.
Thank you, JJ. And again, we're a unique space. We've always been committed to local artists. We've always been committed to emerging artists. But that doesn't mean we don't occasionally do a lifetime retrospective. We've done some really interesting programming around our gallery and exhibit shows. We've just kicked off an initiative with our Community for Conscious Aging, which was one of our lines of service at the Jung Center, where they sponsor a Saturday afternoon artist talk during each of the shows. And we've just kicked that off. We have a wonderful response from our artists. And it's another opportunity for artists to come and talk about their work to interested folks. And again, the hope is always that you're talking to a collector, right? And so certainly it's not required that your work be available for sale, although we definitely encourage that.
Okay, just reviewing the chat here. Thanks, Alyssa, for chiming in, answering some people's questions. She says
And
here,
again, I'll put both of our individual emails in the chat. But if you send an email to art@junghouston.org, it will come to both Rosalinda and I.
just in case people didn't catch this, Alyssa was saying shows are scheduled throughout the year. We block out the summer months for our community show and HSPVA. So accepted entries are typically scheduled for spring and fall openings. Shows are up for about 6 weeks. And yes, we have a very limited number of pedestals, plinths, about 4 or 5. So typically we ask folks provide their own pedestal for 3D work.
And our pedestals are kind of small, like they only have like a 12-inch round top to them, which can be too small sometimes for work. Although I will say the fountain, the fountain, which is no longer a functioning fountain, in the middle of our gallery space is a really wonderful space to park a sculpture or something about your show. It's under a skylight. It gets great natural light. Again, that's one of those things where it's nice to come and see the space because you can think creatively, because it's definitely not just a box. It is the Jung Center is a living, breathing workspace. We're a center for continuing education for adults. And so we have events going on at the center. We have a staff of 15 that works at the center. So yeah, the goal is that you have an exhibit that will be in a functioning space and not just a box.
Yes, excellent. Someone asked about how are the sales handled? Yes, Alyssa says we do either both, depending on the needs of the artist. So the artist can handle the sales if they're there, proactive, or we can handle the sales. Sometimes.
And sometimes an artist is not prepared to process credit card sales themselves. So for sales that we process at the Jung Center, what we do is we automatically retain the 20% commission fee, and then we cut a check for the remaining 80% made out to the artist.
Right, right. Yes, and just clarifying, yes, we do both group shows and individual submissions. Yes, use Canva to help craft your images for submission and download them and then email them to Alyssa. The gallery exhibition committee changes year by year. Can we sell prints? You bet.
Absolutely.
You can sell whatever you can sell. All right.
Yeah, whatever you want to produce and put a price tag on, boy, I'm happy to talk about that.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
We've had artists that produce cards or journals that have their work on them that I then carry in our bookstore for the run of the show. And I have some artists that have done so well in the bookstore that I've continued to carry their cards and journals even after their show was at the center.
Okay, well, Alyssa, do you have any final thoughts? It looks like we have just wrapped it up in terms of everybody's questions.
Yeah, and if anybody would like to raise their hand and ask an additional question, please do so. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for Rosalinda for proposing this. This is the first time that the Jung Center has done something like this kind of informational session. So thank you so much for attending, for being present, and for being curious about our gallery and the work we do. There's not a I'm looking in the chat now. There's not a requirement for additional programming, although we welcome that. Of course, our calendar is populated by the events and programs that the Jung Center provides. But I'm always happy to find room for an artist talk, or if you're someone that wants to do a workshop for the Jung Center public programming. That's always very interesting to talk about as well. And so those are generally on a sort of case-by-case business basis, depending on what the artist is interested in and prepared to do. Not all artists like to do artist talks, and that's okay.
Right, right. Yeah, we definitely encourage artist talks during the openings, or like Alyssa said, if they wanted to do something outside of the opening, then you would work on it with Alyssa about, when that scheduling would work out. We highly encourage that you do a Instagram live. We like to do that. People love to chime in on live, Instagram or after, to see what the artists talk about with their work. And we often try to do a tour of just showing the artwork on Instagram to our audience, people who can't make it or people who want to get inspired and come over and check out the work, and they can see that.
So we did just have a question. How many artists usually submit for the open call? And it can vary from year to year, but typically we get anywhere from 30 to 50 submissions. And we have 6 open slots because we have 8 shows a year, but 2 of those shows are our summer community show, and we always dedicate a spot to the high school students from the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. So we have 6 openings every year, and we usually get between 30 and 50 submissions. And again, to reiterate what Rosalinda had previously said, if you're not accepted, we absolutely encourage folks to try again. There's no restriction. And Lynn, there are not any restrictions about where the artist comes from. Although I will say transportation of art is the responsibility of the artist. rather than the Jung Center. We've had artists from Canada. We have an artist next year who recently moved to the US from Venezuela, but is still moving his sculpture. So he's working on that as we speak. So no, we again, we like to promote local emerging artists, but that's definitely not a requirement.
All right, well, looks like that's the end of our questions. Looks like. Okay, well,
Well,
thank you, everybody.